What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to my channel, Alchemist. Justin here, and bring another little nugget to add to the Soul Tribe archive. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Saturn and Gemini in the second house. Now, when we talk about Saturn, Saturn was known as the greater benefic, or excuse me, wouldn't that be nice? The greater malefic in traditional astrology. But Saturn's nature is to help us to endure. I find Saturn's motto, I was just talking with someone about this. Saturn is like if you stay ready, you don't got to get ready. But Saturn teaches us discipline. Saturn is where we need to learn patience, where we're working with limitations, where we may find constraints, restrictions, where we may need to be like kind of put in some laborious work and things. But I find when we put in that work, Saturn can just show you just how resourceful you can be and really help you build a very solid foundation. Saturn was associated with the land, and it takes a lot of work when you're tending to the land space. It's not just like you can just like sow some seeds and just kind of kick back. You got to tend to them. If there's a flood, there's a lot of work that goes with that. So Saturn just shows us responsibility. And then when we talk about Gemini, their ruler is Mercury, the quick thinking, fast moving Mercury. And their modality is mutable. So there's an adaptability that comes with Gemini. Their element is air, so that deals with like our mental space, the communication, and then the gender is masculine, so there's an active nature that comes with Gemini. And I find when you talk about that sign, Gemini is a quick thinker. There's a sign that just as quick as they can learn it, they can teach it. It's really cool how fast and how strong the mental energy works with them. They got the moniker of just being the communicators of the zodiac. And so those are just some things to think about when we're talking about with Gemini energy. And then you get to the second house. Now, the second house is a succeeding house, and it was known in traditional astrology as the gate of Hades, which is very interesting, but it's understandable. But the topics that it covers are our money, our livelihood, how we make our resources, our material possessions, things of that nature. So when we're working, kind of combining all of this stuff together, a couple of factors to think about. By whole sign, I work with whole sign houses, so you'd be a Taurus rising by whole sign. You're going to want to look to see where Mercury is at, to see how Mercury is witnessing this house. Another thing you want to think about is whether you have a day chart compared to a night chart. Because in a day chart, Saturn works well in a day when we're working in a day sect, as opposed to in a night sect. Saturn's going to be the toughest planet to work with. So that's going to be another thing to consider. And so in this chart, Saturn's going to be responsible for your ninth and your 10th house, your house of like God, of spirituality, higher learning, and then your house of careers, your rank, how you get recognized in the world. So when you combine all this stuff, one thing that I would just generally talk about is just like, what has been your relationship with money? Has this been something that has provided like a lot of like mental strain? For example, let's say if this is in the night chart, maybe you need to work with a financial advisor. Maybe you find yourself being a little loose with the money, just hundreds, just going out there. Or have you noticed that maybe you came up where money wasn't there, and it's made you very frugal, made you really kind of tight with your money, so that's something to consider. How have you had that responsibility? And maybe even taking different financial courses and things along those lines, of not just having like a financial advisor, but making sure that you are just knowing how you're accumulating your resources. But another thing too that I would think, as far as when we're talking about your livelihood, because that's forming a nice trine with your career space. So it's like, what do you want to do? As far as like, you may need to think about different ways of making money. Let's say if you are a musician, for example, maybe it's not just doing different gigs. Maybe you want to also provide lessons, for example. You may need to get creative, get adaptable, learn some, just get money flowing in from different streams. Or maybe you want to look into stocks or something to find a way to make your money work for you. But definitely invest in yourself and invest in your creative endeavors. And you may need to, with that ninth house, yeah, you may need to just like invest in like maybe going to a different school, or yeah, it's getting some sort of like higher education or something along those lines. Or you may even find too that you need to provide your services. Maybe it doesn't do well locally, so maybe you need to kind of branch out a little bit, provide your services, like really do something kind of online, or maybe even doing something over in a different country, possibly depending on wherever you happen to be located in the world. So that would be another thing that I would definitely talk about with this placement. But yeah, overall, I could just because again, I see like with that Mercury or being that how, and that's gonna depend too how Mercury is doing in the chart. Because if Mercury's really kind of in a tough aspects there, or under maybe in a sign that is in its detriment or in its fall, that it yeah, there may be some trickiness there with money. So that's something to keep in mind. But you also just wanted to know too that you just want to keep a general. I'm speaking very generally when I'm talking about this. You definitely need the whole chart in order to understand how this is processing. So if that's something that you are curious about and want to get to know your chart more personally, or how to work with it more constructively, make the most use of your tools, down in the description box below, I have a list of all the services that I provide, so definitely avail yourself of that. And if you're wanting to know what's going on as far as like the lunar shenanigans, come over to my other channel, the Chariot and Friends. I do videos that I release every couple days and talking about that, and do some tarot card spreads as well. So maybe that might even be, maybe you're trying to start a tarot business and you need an example model. I'm there for you. But yeah, all that's down in the description box. But until next time, keep raising that consciousness and that vibration through the roof. And I will catch you on the next one later.